Hey, what's going on YouTube? Today's video is going to cover Blind SQL Injection. We are going to develop a Python script that will ask the MySQL database that we have been using for the last several weeks true or false questions, and based on the response of those questions we will determine the username or password depending on what we are going after. For today's video, we are going to go after the username, as it is just you're able to see it in plain text in the form, whereas it might be blocked out if we do it in the password. But really it does not matter which one we go after, the same response will return. With that being said, let's just go get into the example to maybe better explain exactly what we are going to go over today, and then we will jump into the Python script. Alright, so let's head over to the example. So I already have it pulled up right here. So this is the query that we are going to pass through the username field, similar to what we did in week 5 with some of the manual SQL injection, but this time instead of gaining unauthenticated access, which is what we still will get, not many cases other than this example will that happen. Usually you'll get an error message or something like that, but obviously we created this vulnerable web application, so it's not too secure. But with that being said, this is what we're going to pass through today. So as you can see, we're going to use union select, then null for the first value, and then we're going to use this substring built-in function within MySQL. The first parameter that we need to pass through is going to be the string, or the pretty much what we're looking at within the MySQL database, and that's going to be username. This is the name that is actually on the database side. So if you were to be on the database server and we were to pull the table, this is the first column that we would be looking at. Then the next one is going to be start. So if you were to take the first, let's say the first username, we're going to look at the second character in that username. And then the second integer is length, pretty much how much from the second do you want to return. In this case, we only want to guess one character at a time, as we're going to brute force it. So we're going to use, in this case it would be 2 and 1, but in the Python script we will automate it from starting at 0 for the first integer, and we will just count all the way up until all of it's covered. Obviously, as an exact string, we are going to extract that from the user table, and then this part is where we want to compare it. So the first part is pulling it, and then here we're going to compare it. So we're going to say where substring username again, and we want to use that same username and the same character, but this time we want to pass through a character or a number, and depending on that response will tell us whether or not it's true or false. And then the last one, we're going to limit it to just one column. So if we pass this through on the web application, I already have it. Let me grab that real quick. Alright, so if we pass through, let me edit that real quick. So, no, that should be correct. So if you remember from week 5, I believe, or even week 4, the username is Jack in the first column, and the second, obviously, character is A. So if we pass this through, we should get a true response. So we should get authentication. Login success. Now, in many cases, this is not going to happen. You may get an error message or something along those lines. Maybe you won't get full access. So another method that you could do, maybe to ask it a true or false question to pretty much give you an idea of whether it is true or not. So if we were to use this sleep function, we could say sleep, we'll just do 10 seconds, and substring. So pretty much it's gonna only be true if both of these are true. So it will only sleep if this is in fact true, if the second character in the username equals A. So if we pass this through, it should sleep. As you can see, it is sleeping. Eventually it will come up and it will say login success. I probably did not need to do 10 seconds, but again, that is just an example. So if we were maybe in Python, we could say if the response took longer than 5 milliseconds compared to 2 milliseconds, or whatever the case may be, then we could say, okay, then this was a true answer compared to a false answer. For instance, if we go back in here and now let's make this false, it is not going to sleep. It's going to go right into login failed. So now we could compare the two responses, and we could determine which one is true and which one is false. Alright, so now that we had covered the basics, let's go ahead and start developing that Python script to automate this process, to brute force this login. So first we'll go ahead and make that. So we're going to do blind.py. Why is that showing? Alright. So we are going to create a shebang. For those that are not familiar, this will just pretty much tell the shell on how to execute this script. In this case, we want to execute Python. First, you have to set environment and then Python 3. So if we were to go ahead and do like print and then change that permissions to blind, that's saying that the Python is now executing, or the script is now executing using Python. Or we could also do Python 3 execute it that way if we did not have the shebang, but we do. Alright, so the first thing that we want to do is import 3 libraries. So the first one is going to be the request library. Next one will be string. Really, string is not needed, but it does make it a little bit easier. And then time. Time will just be used for pretty much determining how long it took to get that response. It's just kind of cool to see how long it took to brute force it. Alright, from here, then we're going to define our first variable. That would be the URL that we're going to pass through. So we'll just go ahead and grab that real quick. So it is going to be the authentication.php. So it is going to be where the parameters are being passed to. So it will not be login HTML. So let's go ahead and paste that here. Close that out. Next one, we want to start the time. So we're going to do another variable. So we'll say start equals time.time. Alright, and then the first thing that we want to do is pretty much create a function, and we're going to say define inject SQL. This could be whatever you would like. In here we could make a comment saying what exactly it's doing, but we're just kind of covering our bases here and just providing an example on how you could go about this. This is not the perfect script, so I will not copy this word for word, but it will get the job done. So the next thing you want to do is create a session pretty much using the request library. So define this by using whatever you want here as the variable, so session, and then pull it from the request library, the sessions function. And then next we want to go ahead, before we do anything, so we'll just define the, pretty much, we'll say define character. So this is going to be what is going to be used to pass through that query. So we'll say, first we'll just define the numbers, and we'll do 1 through 9. But we could also use a built-in string or built-in function from the string library. So if we go ahead and do characters, we don't have to do that. We'll just do char, and then we'll just say string.ascii. So that will pretty much give us the alphabet, uppercase and lowercase, and then we will, at the end of that, we will append the numbers that we had just created. Alright, so that's that. The next thing we want to do is just define a counter, like what I like to say. Or in this case, it's going to be length. But so we're going to just set L to 1. And I'll explain that in a minute. But that's going to be used for one of the loops to determine the length of the username or password depending on what we're going after. And then we also want to define a empty variable for the flag. So this is where, or not even flag, we'll say, we could put flag. But this is where we are going to store the final product, the final result of the brute force. And then here we will start the loop. So we're going to say iterate through length of username. So there's going to be 2 loops. this loop will be a while loop, so we're going to say while L is less than 10, do this. Okay, but not only do we want to iterate through the entire length of that password or username, we also want to iterate for each character inside of that, every character and number that we had defined above using this string right here. So we'll go ahead and say for each to find the match. Alright, and then that we'll use the for loop. So we're going to say for C. So for each character in characters, do this. But we have to change this actually. So this is no longer character. So we're going to go ahead and change this to character like that now. So it's saying for every character inside of this string that we had created, do something. And that's going to be for each character in this password or username. So the first thing that we want to do is pretty much post this query that we had just created. So we're going to do request equals session.post, and then the first thing is going to be the URL parameter. So go ahead and pass that here. Then next we want to define the data that we're passing through. First one will be user, and then we're going to use an F string. So an F string allows us in Python to input variables into the string, which I'll better explain in a minute as well. So then we can just go ahead and copy that string, and that should be what we need for now. Next, we want to pass through the password, which is pass 1 2 3 4. In this case, it does not matter at all because it is getting commented out using this query, as you can see here. So everything after that point would be commented out, but we will just pass it out, and that should close out that. And then all we pretty much want to do now is based on the response from that. So we're going to say response equals request.text. So what this means right here is that it's saying that the HTML information that we get, if we go here and we post this, and we go to, let's say, F12 for developer tools, and then in here we see login failed, this is essentially what is going to be printed inside of request.text, and that will be stored in response. And now at this point we want to pretty much look at that response, and we want to see if failed is not inside of there, then take that character that we had passed through in that particular iteration and then store that in the flag variable that we had created earlier. And then we're going to say here, just for our sake, we're going to say found a match, and we'll say if not. We know it's supposed to say failed, but it says if not failed. So if there is no failed in response, then do this. So we're going to say flag, which is empty at this first iteration, equals flag. So for the second iteration, we want to keep that same character that we were putting there, and then we want to say C. I'm going to explain the C in a second. We have not edited the query yet. I just figured it'd be better to explain at the end. And then once that is done, we will break out of that. So the loop will start over from here. But in order to do that, we have to increment the L. And we want to say L plus 1. So we could do that right here. And then we'll just do L plus equals 1. And that's it. That's now we pretty much will get the answer. We do have to change a few things, but at the end we will just say print username flag. So that's going to be the complete username that we had brute force, and then at the end we wanted to find the end time that it took, and we'll pretty much compare the two to get the response time. So we'll say RT for response time equals end minus start, and then we'll print that. And then obviously we would like to we want to call that function, obviously, but we are not done yet. But so let's go ahead back up here. So all this makes sense, but like I said at the beginning over here, the F string, right? So we want to iterate for every character inside of that character string that we had created, and we also want to do it for each number or character in that using the length variable. So the first thing we'll go here, sorry I missed it. So here we are going to use curly brackets, and we are going to specify L, and then we would want to do the same thing for the second one because we want it to be the same. And then here we want to specify this to be C. So we are going to pass C here and L here and here. So for the first iteration, I'll just kind of walk you through real quick. For the first iteration, 1, since L is 1, it's going to be passed here. So for the first character, and only one character, compare it to, which will be A, lowercase a. That'll be here for the first iteration of this loop and this loop. If there is no match found, this will stay the same, L, so it'll still be at 1, but now this will iterate because we're now at the next character, so we'll be at lowercase b, C, and so on and so forth. That will go until it finds a match. Once it finds a match, it will append it, or it will add it, and then later on it will append it. It'll put the C there, and then it will break out of this loop, this for loop, and it'll put us back to right here, which will increase L plus 1. Then we'll continue on for the next one, and that will just continue on until we have the full answer, and that will be printed down here along with the response time. So we did go through this kind of quick. I just noticed 3 errors that I would like to highlight before we go ahead and execute the script and make sure you guys have the complete and running script. So the first error I noticed is that I use number here, and then numbers on the number. I use number here and numbers down here. So make sure they obviously the variables match. The next mistake that I missed was I didn't put an equal sign, and then the last error that I could find, at least syntax wise, was that. Other than that, we should be able to execute this script, so let's go ahead and do so now. What am I doing? So it is going to take a while. We could also set it up where if we want to maybe do more verbose, we could put like, we'll just let that run. We'll go on to another tab real quick. That might be too big. So maybe if we want to make it like more verbose, we could kind of put something down here. So let's go ahead and change. So we already have like print flag. So every time it does find a match, we should see it. Like, so it wasn't even that long. It was what, 41 milliseconds, or yeah, I'm pretty sure it's milliseconds. But as you can see, it got J, A. Every time it went down and found a match, which is right here, it would print the flag. So every time it found J, and then when it found the next one, it appended it, and then printed it, appended it, and printed it, and then it found the final answer. If you want to, maybe you could do something like, just to see what exactly it's doing, you could put it right here. Let's just say print. Let's do print C, or we could do like, we'll do testing C. And if we run that, it should why do I keep doing that? What did I do? I missed I bet I missed something. Yep. So this is pretty much if you wanted to see like exactly what's going on. So this is testing it. So right now it's testing and it's running J. For some reason it's taking a little bit longer. But right here it should print it, append it, and then start over again, as you should see in a second. There you go. So it said I printed it out. It looks like it's kind of messed up a little bit, but it printed out the J, which went to flag. Then it came to testing A, B. It's gonna get that A. It's gonna print that. Same thing. It's gonna keep going on. It's not the most efficient way, but it's just to kind of highlight. You could play around with it and put whatever you would like to make it more verbose or even less. There you go. Again, 41 seconds. Alright guys, that's going to end today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you were able to take something away. Again, this was a Python script covering blind SQL injection. From this video, we were able to essentially guess, or not even guess, brute force the username, and we were able to print that to the screen and now save that for any other malicious attacks that we would like to do with it. That's just another attack vector that we were able to cover today. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned. As always, never stop learning, and if you would, please drop a like, subscribe, comment, show support. I would appreciate it. Until next time. Just a little disclaimer to close out this video. While I was editing this video, I noticed that I completely messed up the query. Essentially, I left the sleep function that I was giving in the example. I left that in the query, and that is why the SQL injection was taking a little bit longer than it should have. Just go ahead and delete that sleep function, and it should just look like this: union select null comma substring with no sleep function, and you should be good to go. I will post this GitHub link down in the description below, allowing you to get all of the updated code for this lab. And that'll be it.